Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I'd love it if you could leave a comment letting me know where you're listening from around the world. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe if you're enjoying this video. Story 1. I was 16 the year my brother vanished. It was supposed to be a normal trip, just a weekend at Grandpa's old cabin in the Arizona woods, a place we had been going since we were kids. A place that smelled like pine and damp earth, where the nights stretched black and endless. The silence so thick you could almost choke on it. Daniel had always been the brave one, the reckless one, 2 years older than me. He was the type of guy who ran toward danger, not away from it. He'd climb the tallest trees, dive headfirst into the coldest rivers, dare me to follow him even when I was shaking in my boots. The last thing I ever heard him say before he disappeared was, "Bet I can last a whole night in the deep woods." I don't know why he did it. Maybe it was just a stupid dare to himself. Maybe he was trying to prove something. All I know is that the next morning, he was gone. We searched for him, my parents, the police, the park rangers. They found his tracks leading into the trees, but no sign of where they ended. No footprints coming back. No sign of struggle. It was like he had simply stepped off the edge of the world. 3 days later, at sunrise, he walked out of the trees. I remember the exact moment I saw him, standing on the front porch of that cabin, bleary-eyed with exhaustion, but too relieved to care. My parents rushed to him, hugging him, touching his face, crying into his shirt. But I just stood there, because something wasn't right. Daniel's clothes were filthy, torn in places. His hair was tangled with leaves, dirt smudged across his arms and neck. But it was his face that unsettled me the most. His eyes, normally bright, full of life, were empty. Not just tired, not just dazed. Empty, like looking into a window of a house long abandoned. He spoke little that morning, ate a single bite of toast, then went to his room and slept for 12 hours straight. My parents chalked it up to exhaustion, trauma maybe, but I knew something was wrong. That night, I lay awake in my bunk, staring at the ceiling, listening to the rhythmic rise and fall of my brother's breathing from the other bed. It was steady, normal. Then, somewhere outside, I heard whispering. I froze. It was faint at first, barely more than a rustle. But as the seconds ticked by, it grew clearer, louder. A voice, calling my name. Ethan. I turned my head toward the window. My stomach clenched. There, just beyond the trailing, stood Daniel. But that wasn't possible, because Daniel was still in bed, his breathing slow and even. I stared, unblinking, my heart hammering in my chest. The figure in the woods was still, too still. His arms hung at his sides in an unnatural way, stiff like a marionette. His skin looked wrong, stretched too tight, the features of my brother's face almost correct, but not quite. And then he smiled. Not a normal smile. No, this one started small, then widened. Too wide. His lips pulled back and kept pulling, exposing row after row of teeth. Human teeth at first, then sharper. Too many. My breath caught in my throat. The thing lifted something in its hand. A shape. Small. Bloody. It was a severed coyote's head. The dead thing's mouth lolled open, its black eyes glassy and unseeing, tongue limp and dripping blood onto the ground. The Daniel thing pressed it against the window. I screamed. Daniel. The real Daniel. Shot up in bed, eyes wide. What? What is it? But before I could get the words out, the thing outside let out a guttural, wet growl and sprinted back into the woods. Not ran, sprinted, too fast, too smooth, like it had been waiting, like it had been watching. My parents ran in moments later, demanding to know what was going on. I tried to tell them, but when we looked outside, the clearing was empty. No tracks, no blood, nothing. Daniel didn't remember anything from his time in the woods. At least, that's what he told us. And maybe it was true, but he never went back out there. Never even glanced toward the trees again. Neither did I. And even now, years later, I still wake up some nights with the image burned in my mind. That too wide grin, those wrong eyes. And I wonder, that thing, whatever it was, did it bring my brother back? Or did it just wear his face? Story 2. I was 22 the night I saw her, driving a lonely stretch of highway through the Navajo Nation. It was one of those nights where the sky felt impossibly vast, the stars cold and uncaring. The kind of night where the desert felt like it could swallow you whole. I had just left my girlfriend's house in Gallup, cutting across the reservation to get home faster. It was past 2 in the morning, and I was running on gas station coffee and exhaustion. The road stretched endlessly ahead of me, black asphalt shimmering under the glow of my headlights. I hadn't seen another car in over an hour, just miles of desert, broken only by the occasional shadow of a rock formation or a gnarled tree twisted up against the night. That's when I saw her, a woman standing on the shoulder of the road, one hand raised in a silent wave. She was wearing a long, pale dress that fluttered slightly in the wind. Her hair was dark and wild, tangled like she'd been walking for miles. There was something off about her stance, the way she stood too still, too rigid. I knew the warnings. Never pick up hitchhikers in the desert, especially not at night. But something about her face made me slow down. She looked desperate, not just lost, not just tired. Desperate. I eased my foot off the gas, my car rolling to a stop just a few feet ahead of her. The silence out there was absolute. No wind, no insects, nothing. Just the low hum of my engine and the rhythmic thump of my heartbeat in my ears. I looked at her in the rearview mirror. She hadn't moved. I don't know why, but my skin prickled with unease. Every instinct was screaming at me to keep driving. But when I glanced at her again, she was suddenly standing right beside my passenger door. I hadn't seen her move. The door creaked open, slow and deliberate, and she slid into the seat beside me. She smelled like earth. Not dirt, but deep earth, like something that had been buried for a long time. For a few miles, neither of us spoke. I kept my hands tight on the wheel, my eyes fixed on the road. Something about the way she sat, too stiff, too still, was making my stomach twist. Finally, I cleared my throat. "You shouldn't be out here alone." That was when she turned her head. Slowly, too slowly. Her face was pale in the dim light, but her eyes, something was wrong with them. Too dark, too deep. And then she smiled. Her mouth stretched too far. Not just a wide grin. It went past her cheeks, splitting her face unnaturally. Her teeth, too many of them, too sharp, glistened in the dim light. My body locked up. Every muscle screamed at me to move, to react. My brain was struggling to process what I was seeing, as if the image of her smile was too wrong to fully comprehend. Then she started laughing. Not a normal laugh. A dry, whispery rasp that crawled under my skin and settled deep in my bones. I slammed on the brakes. The tires screeched against the pavement, the car fishtailing wildly. My breath was ragged, heart hammering against my ribs. I turned, but she was gone. The passenger seat was empty. My hands were shaking as I gripped the wheel. My breathing was too loud in the sudden silence. And then, scratch. Something scraped against the roof of my car. A slow, deliberate sound, like nails dragging across metal. I couldn't breathe. My whole body went cold as the sound moved, slow and steady, from the back of the car toward the windshield. Something was up there. I didn't think, didn't hesitate. I slammed my foot on the gas, tires screaming as I shot forward down that empty road. The scraping sound grew louder, faster. Whatever was on my roof was keeping up. Then a weight shifted. Something heavy thudded onto my hood. And suddenly, her face was there, staring at me through the windshield. Her head was tilted at an unnatural angle, the horrific, too-wide grin stretching across her face. Her hair whipped around her like it was caught in a storm, but there was no wind, no movement except for my car flying down the road. Her lips moved, but I couldn't hear the words. Then she slammed a hand, long, bony fingers with clawed nails, against the glass. I screamed. The car veered, tires skidding as I fought to keep control. And then, just like that, she was gone. The weight lifted. The windshield was empty. I didn't stop driving. Not until I was home, locking every door, every window, checking them over and over again until the sun came up. The next morning, I finally forced myself to go outside. My car was covered in deep, claw-like gouges. They ran from the back of the roof, all the way down to the hood. I scrubbed at them, hoping they'd be just dirt, just some kind of optical illusion. But they weren't. They were real. And late at night, when I close my eyes, I can still hear it. That dry, whispery laughter. Some nights, I dream that I'm still out on that highway, the road stretching endlessly ahead. And I see her again, standing in the headlights, waving. Next time, I won't stop. Story 3. Ricky and I have been best friends since we were kids. We grew up together in a small reservation town in New Mexico, the kind of place where everyone knew each other's business, where the land stretched out forever in dusty reds and browns, and where the past never really stayed buried. Every summer, we'd take off into the wilderness, pretending we were explorers or outlaws, pushing deeper into the canyons, daring each other to spend the night in places our parents warned us about. We were stupid back then. We thought nothing could touch us. That summer, we decided to camp out near a canyon about 10 miles from town. It wasn't our first time there, but something about it always felt off. The wind whistled through the rock formations in a way that sounded almost like voices. Animals never seemed to linger. Even the air smelled different, like something old, something watching. We set up camp just before sunset, building a small fire and roasting some hot dogs. Ricky was telling some dumb story about a girl he had a crush on when the conversation drifted toward the old stories our grandparents used to tell, about the things that lived out there, the ones that could wear your skin, the ones that mimicked voices. We laughed it off, but there was a moment, just a brief, unspoken moment, where we both sat there in silence, listening to the wind, wondering if maybe, just maybe, those stories were true. We turned in around midnight. Ricky fell asleep almost instantly, but I stayed awake for a while, staring at the tent ceiling, listening to the crackle of the fire outside. Then I heard it. A voice. Eli. Soft, distant. My stomach twisted, and I turned my head toward Ricky. He was right there, his chest rising and falling in steady breaths. But his voice had come from outside the tent. I held my breath. Maybe I was imagining it. Maybe I was dreaming. Then it came again, closer this time. Eli, come look at this. The voice was identical to Ricky's, but wrong. The tone was stretched, almost lazy, like someone playing a recording in slow motion. My whole body locked up. I reached out and shook Ricky's shoulder. Dude, I whispered. Wake up. He groaned, half asleep. What? Someone's outside, I said. His eyes opened a little, but before he could say anything, there was a soft tap, tap on the tent wall. We both froze. I felt Ricky tense up beside me. My fingers fumbled for the flashlight. I clicked it on, aiming the beam at the thin fabric of the tent. A shadow stood just beyond the firelight. It was tall, too tall. My breath came in short, sharp gasps. My mind was screaming at me to stay inside, but my body wasn't listening. My shaking hands reached for the zipper of the tent. I pulled it down, just an inch, just enough to see. The fire was burning low, casting flickering shadows across the canyon walls. And then I saw it. I don't know how to explain it. Not in a way that makes sense. At first glance, it looked like Ricky. Same messy hair, same worn-out hoodie. But the longer I looked, the more I realized something was horribly, horribly wrong. Its face wasn't right. The skin was sagging, almost melting, like it had been left out in the sun too long. The eyes, the eyes were too black, too deep, like pits dug straight into its skull. And then it smiled. Not a normal smile. A wide, unnatural grin that stretched too far, revealing teeth that were too sharp, too long. Eli, it said again in that slow, dragging voice. Look at me. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. My entire body had locked up, frozen in pure terror. Ricky was the one who snapped out of it first. He scrambled for his backpack, yanking out something wrapped in cloth. His grandfather's blessed knife. Without hesitation, he threw it. The knife spun through the air, hitting the thing square in the chest. It let out a sound that wasn't human, a shriek that echoed through the canyon, high-pitched and wrong, like an animal screaming in reverse. Then, it dropped to all fours and ran. Not like a person, not even like an animal. It moved like something broken, its limbs jerking at odd angles as it sprinted toward the trees. Ricky and I didn't hesitate. We grabbed our stuff, leaving the tent and half our gear behind. We ran to the truck, jumped in, and peeled out of there so fast that we almost flipped the damn thing. We didn't stop until we were back in town, parked in Ricky's driveway, our hands still shaking. We didn't talk about it. We just sat there in silence, staring straight ahead, breathing hard. It wasn't until later that I realized something. That thing, it hadn't just been trying to scare me. It had been calling me outside, mimicking Ricky's voice, trying to lure me out. And I don't even want to think about what would have happened if I'd gone.